And I didn't answer. I kept walking, and then I heard Empire. So I turned around and I said, did you just say to me? And I see the attacker masked, and he said, this MAGA country punches me right in the face. So I punched his ass back. And then we started tussling. You know, it was very icy, and we ended up tussling by the stairs. Fighting. There was a second person involved who was kicking me in my back. And then it just stopped. And they ran off. And I saw where they ran. And the phone was in my pocket, but it had fallen out. And it was sitting there. And my manager was still on the phone. So I picked up the phone and I said, Brandon. And he's like, what's going on? And I said, I was just jumped. And then I looked down and I see that there's a rope around my neck, which I hadn't.
You hadn't noticed it before?
No,
you didn't
because
see?
It was so fast. You know what I'm saying? It was so fast.
All right, Mark, what do you got?
Yeah. Okay. Look, there's so much. There's so like all of us could talk for an hour just on that piece there. Let me just hit a few points. Tussling. That feels like minimization to me. So I'm already concerned about that. Tussling. Fighting. All right. Here's a chance for the detail. Yeah. It isn't just when you get attacked, it isn't just fighting. There's detail that you are going to remember, and it might not be the detail that your audience expect, but there will be detail that will go, wow, you remember that thing about it, that's amazing. But you don't tend to put it in a bucket of tussling, fighting, and then details that don't matter. By the stairs. What does that matter? It doesn't matter. The location doesn't matter anymore. You know, you're going to set Peach off now. I'm going to set Peach off. So those things don't matter. We have looks for approval, but we don't have any looks of aggression or anger. So for me, that's I would expect there's going to be fear, aggression, anger coming back as he replays that story. We don't see any of those writ large or micro. So I'm concerned about that, but we do get looks of approval around this. He talks about the attacker. Well, why not the attackers? We now know he already finds out that there's two. So it's like he seems to be making this stuff up as he goes along. And then we've got a big lip retraction at the end there. Then it just stopped. Number one, I don't believe that idea. And then even more, the lip retraction for me says that there's something up with that. There. Chase, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think in the first 10 seconds, here's what I got. And then I heard, so I, and I see. That's just the first 10 seconds. And then he accidentally switches to present tense language during the middle of this story, which is very, very bad. And then right to Scott's thing that you always hear from Scott, there's some fading facts when he says the word attacker. I'll let you talk about what that means. And there's some hesitation at the word masked, which I think is another red flag. But here's the biggest thing that I saw here. He's accidentally telling the story from the attacker's POV. He shows anger on his face when he's talking about what they were yelling at him. More anger when he's saying this thing about MAGA country, this loud and aggressive voice when he's saying empire really loud. And he's moving his own hand to illustrate punching instead of being punched in the face. So he's telling a story that he wrote to us. He's just in the wrong POV, which is a mistake of a lot of amateur writers and storytellers, is not telling it from the right POV. And he's saying, I knew we started tussling and this 3 times fighting and the second person showing up. The second person was already there. And then it was and, so then this. This is what fake sounds like. If you ask a kid to tell a lie or tell a random story, make it up on the spot. This is what you're going to hear. And this is what you're going to see. He forgot to craft how real events end when he says this just ended. So this is how a fake story ends. This is how kids end a fake story. And then it was over. And that was it. That was the end. And what's funny to me, or interesting, I should say, not funny, but interesting, is that he's amused. He's pleased with himself for telling this. And he thinks he did a good job. You can see it on his face right there at the end with the facial expression. But here is a quick compilation of the entire clip. I'll do it very quickly here. And I saw, and I said, Brandon, and he's like, and I said, and then I looked down, and I see, whoops, switch to the present tense again on accident. Overall score on the behavioral table of elements is a 27. Which is extremely high when 11 indicates a possible deception. And that's all I got. Mark, what do you think?
No, I'm done.
You already went.
But I think it's good. I think I think it was excellent. Thanks,
Greg. What do you think?
Thanks for checking in with me, Greg.
Yeah, so his blink rate is up when he's not making eye contact. Pay attention to that. When he makes eye contact, he goes to that romancer stare to make sure what you're saying. He's looking to see if he's getting approval. And I'm going to use his word. She ain't buying it. You can see it. She has barriers. She's at distance. Her eyes are closing. She's nodding as he talks to fish out his story. Really good interview technique. And I'm going to talk about her because it's very clear here that she's suspicious at times. He's looking for shock when he uses racial slurs and that. He doesn't get it. He does get her response where she's like, what? But he doesn't get what he expected. He's fishing for shock with those words. He's navigating perfect details of a story he's prepared in his mind. This is a good example of just being a good actor doesn't make you a good script writer, and why a good script is important to a good actor. Mark, you can talk to that better than any of us. But if you think you're a great script writer and you go in and write the story in a way that is shallow and superficial and has no depth, that's what's going to happen. What's interesting to me is his head retreats when he uses those words, all the racial slurs and that, and the derogatory terms. His head retreats. That made me go, wonder why I did that. He doesn't do it anywhere else. Then when he's talking about tussling by the stairs, his lips purse almost in disapproval at what he said. I'm not sure what's going on there, but he clearly knows. I don't know where he came up with the word tussle. And then he's fighting. And a second person involved. Well, people who are beating you up aren't involved. They're beating you up. That's how it works. They're kicking me in the back. Well, the second person started kicking me in the back. Not the second person involved. There's a distancing and a passive voice was kicking me in the back. Then he goes to an internal voice. He looks at her, and her face shows she's not buying this. She's kind of like, what? Give me a second. I'm not sure I believe that. Then she actually shows a little bit of shock and disbelief. And then you can see there's something in her face that makes me think either she's got some disgust starting, some kind of disdain, but her face changes shapes entirely right there at the end, like she doesn't believe what he's saying. And this thing's edited. We can't miss that. There are edits that you'll see going through here. But I'm starting to see her going, I'm not sure I believe that when he's talking this way. We all know that you would feel emotion. If somebody were yelling something at me, I would feel emotion, and I would show that emotion. I wouldn't talk about tussling. When somebody's beating you up. Now, when I told you something happened to me at 14, I'm still a little irritated about that because I got a broken nose out of it that I had to have surgery for later. This is supposedly right after it happened. And we're going to hear some really intricate details. But all those ands to stitch the story together sounds like 'twas a night before Christmas. It's all strung together to make it play. So that's my Christmas ad to your Christmas tree. Scott, what do you got?
All right. Well, when he right out of the gate on this one, he comes in with 2 words you don't say. And he says them. I don't care who you are. It's not good to say. And so he knows once he's done that, and I think the reason his head's going back like that, because he's like, I can't believe I'm doing this. Because when he lets those go, he's in at this point. There's no going back at this point because these guys said this. And then he says, he talks about the guy hitting him. He says, so I hit him back. Have you seen a picture of these guys? If one of these guys hit you, and you're him or me, no, that's all it's going to happen. That's all it's going to be. Your story's going to be, I got knocked out. I don't know what happened. Your wallet's going to be gone or whatever. That's all it's going to be. There's not going to be any fighting. When he says fighting, he's trying to stretch it out. that he's buying time. He's creating a verbal bridge, as Joe Navarro says, to create time, to make it look like there's a lot of things going on in there. And when he says tussle, the reason you don't hear tussle, Greg, is because it's not 1936. And nobody talks that way. Nobody. You've never heard that word out in the wild, ever. Maybe in an old
Occasionally I
movie or
tussle. I don't know.
Yeah, I bet you do. Then when he says it just stopped, Mark called it. It doesn't just stop. Somebody wins, and then they kick you one more time to make sure they won, and then you say something horrible to them, then you walk off. For example, sometimes they begin that way. One time when I was in high school, we'd go hang around behind this church called at Woodland. It was this church at Woodland, and one time there were 5 or 6 of us there, and I was sitting on the hood of this car, right, and acting all like it was cool. And these guys from Clinton, because we were in Oak Ridge, and they drove over from Clinton, the other football team. I didn't play football, but all my friends did. And so this car pulls up, and these guys get out, and this guy starts walking toward me, and of course everybody starts fighting. And I said something really graphic about his mother, and he hit me one time, and it knocked me on the back of the thing, and I pretend I was knocked out. So I wouldn't have to do anything else, because these guys would have killed you. They're huge. We were juniors, and these guys were seniors or in college or something. I'd never seen them before. They were big. So when it's over, that's it. That's it. It's not just a surprise. Something's happened and it's over. You give up, and they keep hitting you, and then you're done. And again, these guys, they're too big for him. If there were 2 of them, there wouldn't have been fighting. There would have been running. There would have been fighting in that case. You see, he's turtling. He's getting everything all shut down. He's not moving much at all as he's talking. And he's looking right in the eyes, got the fig leaf going, the whole thing. And it's starting to dawn on him that she's not believing him. Because if you look at her, she's like, no, this isn't, she's trying to be engaged because she's there to do a job. And she's trying to be, hey, this is the way it is, man. I'm here trying to get information from you. But you can't hide those things. So she's starting to look like, I don't know about this. I think he's starting to catch some of that. So he's trying to connect even harder. And then when he starts talking about the phone again, he goes back and relives the part about the phone in his little play here. He goes through and how it was on the ground. He had to talk to his manager and all that. It's just way too many details. And he's making himself, now at the beginning of this is where it's, I told you I was going to pull a mark on this. This is where it's like Macbeth. Shakespeare had this play called Macbeth. At the beginning of it, Macbeth is this guy everybody likes, and he's supposed to be a pretty cool guy. But as it goes along, he ends up being a real dink, at the end of it. So, and that's what's happening here. We're seeing him go from the really cool guy, because he's an actor, he's on TV, man, had everything going for him, everything. And now he's ruining it for himself by doing this. And Macbeth did something different. But in this case, we're seeing it now. We're starting to see him crumble in his play. And Kafka said, well, we'll get into Kafka later. Every man must necessarily be the hero of his own story. So that's another part of it. He's trying to be the hero of his own story, trying to be the tough guy. So I hit his ass back. No, he didn't hit anybody back. He can't do that. I know I'm getting animated about that, but I know these guys, when I see them, being one that wouldn't be able to get up and be a tough guy. I can't buy it. I'm not in.
So Scott has now added to the lexicon of fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and added fake unconsciousness.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I didn't answer. I kept walking, and then I heard Empire. So I turned around and I said, "The did you just say to me?" And I see the attacker masked, and he said, "This MAGA country," punches me right in the face. So I punched his ass back. And then we started tussling. It was very icy, and we ended up tussling by the stairs. Fighting. There was a second person involved who was kicking me in my back. And then it just stopped. And they ran off. And I saw where they ran. And the phone was in my pocket, but it had fallen out. And it was sitting there. And my manager was still on the phone. So I picked up the phone and I said, "Brandon." And he's like, "What's going on?" And I said, "I was just jumped." And then I looked down and I see that there's a rope around my neck, which I hadn't.
You hadn't noticed it before?
No,
You didn't
because
see?
it was so fast. You know what I'm saying? It was so fast.
There. And then we're going to go ahead. We're going to move ahead after that. If you like this video, get the full body language breakdown and analysis on our main channel by clicking this video right here.